Hi, I'm Debbie Angus and welcome to The Drum and IBM's partnership where we're talking about the innovation game. What's the innovation game? It's talking about how fans and engagement with your consumers can change your strategy from a marketing, from a brand, and from a technology perspective.
The first question, as I said, because we are talking fans, we are talking engagement, we are talking loyalty, and sports obviously incites passions like nothing else. As brands, is there a distinction between fans, customers?
I mean, the reason we go after sporting partnerships is to tap into the fans, the adult fans, and turn them into consumers. But yeah, they definitely behave differently. So for example, we would expect to see more fans in the live sporting environment. For example, in stadiums, so we would behave very differently in that environment, for example, using rights and assets like player appearances to kind of engage those people. It's very much around kind of understanding the behaviours of those different groups of people and finding a way for your brand to enhance that occasion for them.
So when we're dealing with brands, it's also, we're on a journey as well because it's fairly new, and so we want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. We're representing, we're a gaming company at heart. We're a gaming company first, and then a marketing platform second. And so it's a case where the benefit for us, and I was saying earlier, is we have a sport where we have fans who are very engaged with the brands that sponsor the events because ultimately it legitimises the sport.
From an IBM perspective, we're all in on enterprise design thinking, which helps you break down what you're trying to achieve and get to the heart. Because in the end, fanship is about something you feel rather than customers might be just about something you think, right? And so it's a really different set of emotions that you're trying to tap into.
Quite rightly, yes, we want to cultivate fans, and what we take customers and we want to generate loyalty, and we want to do it for a series of commercial reasons, which is the cost of acquisition is so high. So you want to make sure that your customers become, the kind of the fans who are just happy, they're just generally satisfied with things. The ones that ramp up into mega fandom, again, is a real concern. How do you treat those? And I don't think we have that strategy nailed down at all in being able to kind of tier those people and respond accordingly. I think it's the car industry is notoriously fickle, so people will be looking for a German car brand and go, okay, well, I'm looking for a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes, give me the best deal.
Trust from an IBM perspective is really core to our values in terms of what we're trying to do and the way that we want to drive how tech is used and the impact that it can have on the world at large, right? But for all of these conversations and all of this brand belonging, it will all come back to that level of trust. How much can I trust you? If I tell you that you suck, do you do something about it? If I, to your point, if I tweet it, are you going to respond or are you going to ignore me?
I think for me, one of the things that we try very hard with our brand strategies, across all of our brand strategies, is to kind of make sure that we tap into a cultural tension and turn it into a positive. And I think in a sports sponsorship perspective, I think over the last decade we very much moved from a place of kind of passive awareness of brands and using brands as or finding that free space to put your logo on. And I think now the most important thing for any brand going into a sporting environment is to make sure that you move consumers and fans into a place of active engagement. And I think you can very much do that with technology, but I think it's a case of not shoehorning, one, your brand, and two, the technology into that environment.
As Vice President of Consumer Experience, what I'm primarily concerned with is the online to offline technology experience, how we track people from the online consumers right through to the experience, the makeup and fragrance experience that they have in store. And what's interesting is I've been looking at a lot of different areas. Obviously the key one is the new retail movement in China and what they're doing, but I've also been looking sideways and looking at some of the sports arenas too, because what we're looking to do with the retail stores is move away from sort of warehouses of stock into places where you experience the brand and it's more of an entertainment environment. So we've been looking at a number of things, probably more of the progressive sports areas like Formula E and esports as well.
So I'm Anand, the head of digital for Panasonic. We're a small startup. We do a lot of different products like Sonu said, in terms of everything from TVs through to beauty products, grooming products, telephones, In Japan, we also do electric bikes. So yeah, I think our audience base is really wide. And internally, I use car brands as a very good example, as in you've got one product, but therefore multiple different kinds of audiences. We have multiple products for multiple different kinds of audiences. So we're essentially a bunch of small startups under one big brand. So when it comes to delivering to our customers, it's not so much about entertainment, it's more about experiences. It's about what value are we adding. And in the context of this particular conversation, it's along the lines of when we are using sport, why are we using sport and what are we adding to that experience? Because if you think about being a sports brand, then obviously there's a natural connection. If you think of yourself as a Nike or an Adidas or somebody else, again, there's a natural connection. But I'm assuming somebody like Diageo probably has a similar issue, as in we don't naturally fit in, or even Audi for that matter, we don't naturally fit into the sports fans ecosystem. And if we are trying too hard, then we are forcing ourselves into their lives, and that's where it starts to fall apart.
The shrinking pool of sports rights that we can compete for with the new competition in the market is definitely a big thing. But I think the truth about our position as a broadcaster in relation to sports fans is that sports fans generally are fans of Liverpool, or they're fans of the Champions League, or they're fans of, you know, what the event that they're watching, and they don't necessarily have a connection with the channel that they're watching on. For us, when we do have these big tournaments like the Euros next year, like World Cups when they come round, is what can we do to involve ourselves in that conversation in a way that has a kind of positive effect on their view of us as a brand. And that's a really difficult thing to do, and I can't remember who mentioned it, but somebody said something about being passive and just being a part of that process, whereas we actually need to find a way to kind of add value, like you were saying as well. So there's stuff that we've done in horse racing and things like that. We've done a lot of 360 to try and kind of innovate, and that's obviously the theme of today, and that's going to continue to be a challenge for us, I think.
In most sport in this country, they are not using data very well, and it could be completely transformed by not even really super clever things, but just tiny little things. And there's a hesitance, there's inertia, there's Luddism that is rife, and people just not getting it, and people thinking that technology is our enemy, and looking at what you guys are doing. And I remember when I was at Sport England, I kept saying, listen, we should absolutely, thinking about the youth that you have, we should be getting into bed with these guys. And they were like, no, why would we do that? They're stealing our people. It was like, well, they've stolen them. The only way we're going to get them back is if we work with them and get them to do what they're doing, like that in their bedrooms, to come and have a real life experience as well, and make it not a competition, but a complementary relationship.
The funny thing from my perspective is we're fighting the opposite battle, because we have an incredible amount of data. We're born of technology and data, and what makes, when we go right back to the beginning and saying what's your biggest problem is coordinating this with brands. Because everybody's sort of very trepidatious. Right, and gaming as a whole, you've got 2.4 billion people, 1 in 3 of us playing games. It's such a huge, embracing and diverse audience as well. And brands are still hesitant, even though it's as big as I've said before, still going, right, how do I do this sensitively? And you've got the history and the ground, the circumstances around rugby and football and these traditional sports, and you have this new kid on the block, which has a shit ton of data.
I think people are very quick nowadays to kind of jump onto all of the different technologies and want to run with them. But I think it goes back to kind of hopping back to that cultural tension piece. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is the experience that you're trying to enhance?
When we sponsored 2012, we had a long association with UK Athletics. Then all of those metrics were as high as they've been in the last decade, as far as I'm concerned. But the chat on earlier with Guinness as well, is that, if you want to construct associations in people's brains very, very quickly with your brand, then you have to invest in a kind of quite a tangible way over a long period of time. And I'm not sure our business is capable of doing that at the moment.
I think that's a really key point, and I think for us, we were talking about Guinness and rugby. Obviously, those relationships date back 3 decades now, and the reason that we've stayed in that sport for so long with Guinness is because the values of the sport are so synergistic with the values of Guinness. And I think in order to kind of build that longevity and build that memory structure so that when that person walks into that environment, they automatically think of your brand, you need that longer term investment in order to do so.
And I remember Bobby Britton was leaving Coca-Cola 3 years ago, and he was talking about how he felt the sponsorship model was broken because Coca-Cola had sponsored the Olympics for decades, but it meant his competitors all knew exactly what Coca-Cola was going to do, and they could jump in the bandwagon, they could try to ambush market around it, but they didn't have to spend the money. But what is the modern sports sponsorship deal that works, and how do you know it's genuinely creating value for the brand, especially when you know that your competitors know what you're doing years in advance as well?
I think it's very much like you just said. We've moved from a place of sponsorship where you pay a fee for essentially media value and hospitality elements of part of sponsorship to a place where it is very much more a partnership kind of landscape, and you have to work together to engage consumers and fans.
And if we are going to use this for good, actually get people to play football, to get people in the community doing stuff, being active, because that's where you see transformation. Is people's physical and mental well-being is just improved by going out and playing. And the brand that can crack that, and there are a couple that have managed to do it, not necessarily in this country, where they're doing that high-level partnership with a really premier sports brand, but actually getting people to play